Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cut and Splice. This is Matt speaking, and I'm here with Gil and Jason, as usual.
Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
And this time around, we're going to be talking about the 1985 film Clue. This is kind of a childhood favorite of mine, based on the board game. uh, Tim Curry, Michael McKean, Christopher Lloyd, Madeline Kahn, basically a plethora of comedic actors hammered home this movie, and uh, it it seems like something that we can uh, analyze and dissect, and maybe we all agree that it's hilarious, or maybe we don't agree that it's hilarious. I believe that it's hilarious. So I'll just leave it to you guys. Yeah.
So do you feel like compared to like when we did you have different reactions to it when you were young versus now?
Yeah. I did I didn't understand most of the jokes when I was younger.
Mm.
I mean, most of the broad humor
Yeah, there's a lot
hit.
of sexual stuff too. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I'm shouting, I'm shouting, I'm shouting, and getting hit by the candlestick on the head. That hit me when I was younger, but yeah, more of the innuendo and like the jokes about communism and everything like that, like that flew way over my head when I was a kid. And watching it again as an adult, it's just way funnier. It's yeah, yeah, everything hit.
Jason, have you seen this before today?
yes and no. I had probably seen 85% of the movie, including all the endings. I think I saw this movie on television at one point because I know for sure I had never seen the first like 20 minutes or so. But it had, I think the only time I'd seen it was uh, probably 20 years ago or so, quite a while ago. And so I just remembered the actors and what characters they played and how frantic everything gets towards the end. And I remember thinking it was pretty funny um, at the time, and also just kind of it being a memorable Tim Curry performance. But I was coming into it very fresh for this one because, like I said, at least I think 20 years is a good guess. Is about how long it had been since I'd seen any of it, and certainly in all in one sitting from beginning to end.
Yeah, when I was watching it, the one thing I was looking for is when I saw John Landis, I was like, "Oh, did he direct this?" But then I saw there was Jonathan Lean. Um, I was, it's I it's definitely a good cast. I was very excited to see. You know what's funny to me about this movie? It's like the same year that Back to the Future, I think, came out, and Christopher Lloyd just looks nothing like Doc Brown. Like
Yeah.
it's like you just realize, like, wow, they really just dyed his hair, like put like extensions or like whatever. Maybe it was a wig. Who knows? But like, it was just he looks nothing like Doc Brown. Like just the age, like the proper age. It's kind of crazy,
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I was happy to see Madeline Kahn made me like kind of made give it like a Mel Brooks feel to it
yeah.
in some sense with her. But and I will say on IMDb the photo for the guy who played Colonel Mustard. His IMDb photo. He looks
Martin
like
Mull.
Martin Mull. He looks like Terry Gilliam. but yeah, no, I didn't know what to expect. I assumed it was going to be like an 80s whimsical thing. I've never seen it. I also
Important question, Gil. Important question.
Yeah.
Did you play the board game?
Yeah, that was going to be my next thing to you, is like, because Clue wasn't a big thing, I think, in Israel. It might have existed there, like a translated version, but it wasn't really a very common thing. So I didn't play it. I'm assuming you two played it, maybe.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so it had that whole ethos to it, I guess. But I knew that it was gonna be a whodunit, but I didn't know how it was gonna be. Like I didn't know the whole thing about like the setup, that like their what their secret is and why they're all gathering together and stuff, like it's and how they're connected. Like that part was like different. That was the one question I was going to ask, is like how, especially for Matt, because I know you watch a lot of these and maybe Jason too, but like do you feel like this compares to like some of the more modern, whodunit ones by like Brana and like like Ryan Johnson stuff?
It's pretty good.
I mean, if you're comparing it to like Death on the Nile, I think it's far better. Oh, you mean that the woman who brandished the gun in front of the greatest detective in the world turned out to be the murderer? Oh, what? Fuck me! I never saw that coming. Right? Just bad. Uh, I love Kenneth Branagh, but apparently Agatha Christie was not a very good author. So took that kind of format and decided to have fun with it. And I mean, it's kind of like South Park making fun of Kenny dying or something. It's just, a bunch of innocent people died, and it's all funny because they're treating it like a comedy. It's broad comedy. They knew exactly what they were trying to do when they went in, and they accomplished that. So yeah, I think that it was just an accomplishment.
Yeah, no, I think I agree tone wise that it's it's definitely the way to go to, if you're gonna do something this
Hey,
ridiculous.
yeah.
Yeah.
I am your singing telegram. Bang, dead.
Yeah.
It's
That has made me laugh for like 30 years.
Wow, that's high praise.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a board game that my family played often. I was pretty excited when I found out there was a movie of it when I was quite a bit younger. Then I didn't see it for many years after that. But yeah, it's pretty good as far as like a whodunit thing goes. It's just I mean, I think they obviously thought about it as like, we're not going to do this movie if we're not going to also be a decent whodunit in and of ourselves. And then they had to come up with a reason why all these characters are in a house together and so on and so forth, and why they would all have motive and things like that, because the board game is just like a bunch of little characters with the same names, and they're just happened to be in the house when somebody died, kind of thing. So motive is not really a part of the board game.
Oh, I
but
see. That's what I was curious about, like how close it is structure wise to
I
the
mean,
thing.
as close as you could expect a movie to be to a board game. Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
close. I mean, the board game is very simple. It's just a board with a floor plan of a house, basically. And and each, and there's like, I don't know, 12 rooms or something like that in it. And the right in the middle of the board, you put, you randomly take cards from a deck, and you put, there's one card for each character, one card for each weapon, and one card for each room. And you place one of each randomly inside of a little envelope that nobody can see, and deal out the rest of the cards. So everybody's got a little bit of information about who didn't do it, and nobody has any information about who did. And then you just randomly, you just take turns rolling the dice. You have to be inside of a room physically to accuse somebody, and you just start randomly accusing people, and you have to come up with a person, a weapon, and the room that you're in. And one at a time, people just give you evidence based from their hand to prove you wrong, and then you just kind of jot down notes until you figure out through process of elimination who's in the envelope. That's pretty much all it is. It's pretty simple. In fact, once you understand the game, despite the fact that I always loved this game as a kid, I have to admit it does get a little tedious having to like roll the dice and get to a room just to make an accusation, when about halfway through, I think everybody kind of usually figures out what room it is. But anyway.
Yeah. That's it's interesting. One of the critics was saying like how it was like a pretty negative review, but he was saying something about like, but it does have the distinguish like thing of like probably being the only movie to be based on a board game. I'm wondering if
At the time,
at the time, exactly. Since then, there's been several for sure.
Really, only two that I would call actual tabletop board games, which would be this one and that terrible Battleship movie.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that movie was pretty much unwatchable for me, at least. It's a terrible, terrible movie, and that's about the only other one I would say that's actually based on a board game. I did, before we got on here, I just did a quick Google search to see if there's any I'd forgotten, and all the other ones that came up are like movies that are about board games but not based on. Like, for instance, Jumanji was something that they created a board game for the movie. Same thing with Zathura. There is a board game of Zathura, but it was created after the movie. The movie Game Night with Jason Bateman and all those other excellent people in it. That Rachel McAdams and several others. That's a really funny movie about people who play board games all the time, but it's not about a board game.
Yeah.
Same thing with most of the other ones you could come up with. Like, there's been Dungeons and Dragons that have had several movies now and stuff like that. But I mean, that's about RPG games, which I personally would put into a separate category. I wouldn't call it the same thing.
It's true, because it's mostly the dice and not as much a board.
There's usually no board. Usually it's all being played out. I mean, sometimes you have visual representations, I guess, and I've heard of people using boards, but I mean, most traditional games like that are dice and stat sheets and stuff like that, and imagination.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite board game growing up, which I brought with me. It's funny because I bought it in Vegas when I was 14 on my trip on the US, and then I brought it to Israel, and then I brought it from Israel to LA because I wanted to play with my kids when they were born. And now I get to play it. I play it with Elon all the time. It's called Hero Quest, and it's basically you might know it, but
I've heard of it. I've never played it.
It's essentially Dungeons and Dragons with representation, like with a board representation. You have like orcs, goblins, like that the heroes fight, and you have 4 heroes. One of them is a magician, one of them is an elf, one is a dwarf, and one's a barbarian, which is essentially like the human, So it's very like Dungeons and Dragons / Lord of the Rings type of vibe, but it's like a board game, and it's just very fun, like monsters, skeletons, and like. So I've been playing it with Elon in the last like year or two, on and off. He gets different as he grows older. He gets different type of experience. Eventually, once he's much older, we can play it for real, like competitively. But for now, he's just kind of going through the motions and learning how the game works. But in any case, but yeah, board games are actually one thing that's interesting about it. I don't know if you guys have an opinion about it before we give our ratings and everything, but I do know a few people in my life and my almost immediate family, people that are very into um, board games and card games and stuff like that. And I've always liked the way I looked at it is like it's some sort of like an alternative or like counter programming to digital media, whether it's video games or watching movies or being on social media. It's these people want to find something that's other than that, like, oh, read a book or play a board game, like do something that's analog so you're not stuck on a screen all day. So I think I wonder if the rise in popularity of board games in the last couple of decades is for that reason, is like a counter programming to all the digital stuff that we've been bombarded with, like since since the internet became a big thing.
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's an interesting theory for sure.
Because it seems like it's all or nothing. Like the people that I know, I mean, I don't have to hide it. It's like my funny enough, my two brother-in-laws, one from Diana's side and one from my side, like my sister's husband. Both of them are like big board game people, but it's not one or two board games. It's like 20 to 30. They're like collectors. It's like a thing. It's not like, oh, I'll have like a few just in case. Like it's a thing. It's like it's a culture.
Matt, do you have a lot of board games?
Do I have a lot of board games? No. I have a tri-dimensional chess set, and I have Secret Hitler. So yeah.
Play that sometimes.
I have lots of board games. My family played board games a lot growing up. As far as the one or the other thing, I'm not so sure. I like board games because I grew up playing them a lot with my family, and it's a little more interactive than watching a movie, obviously. Not any more communal than watching a movie together with people, but certainly more interactive. But as far as the one or the other thing, I mean, I don't know. It's my parents also, my family growing up, we also watched a lot of movies too. So I don't know. I know that when I was a kid and I wanted to play video games all the time, my parents would not just encourage, enforce some limitations on video games and force us to go outside and do other things. But I don't know if that has anything to do with them being like one way or the other about it. I think it has more to do with them just not really understanding the appeal of video games and being concerned with us being stuck on them like zombies kind of thing. Which, take it or leave it. That's we can say that was a good or bad decision. It's not really for either way. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I definitely feel with my kids that essentially it's an option that's other than a movie or watching TV or playing video games for that matter, because they've started doing that too. So it's because like one of the options to avoid screens is basically we either go to the park, like, play tennis or like do something, go to the playground because we have like a tennis wall. We can bounce the ball off of like at our park here. Or I just got them like this small bat, a small racket that's like a kid size. So see if like that helps them. But yeah, it's basically either we go to the park or we play board games or card games. Those are the only two options aside from like TV. Sometimes they'll do their own thing, like they'll do projects, they'll draw, they'll do other things. But the main two things I can do that can really eat up a lot of time to get through a day, like a weekend day, would be board games or going to the park. Yeah. And or just hanging out, yeah, like doing like messing around with their toys, and I'll put music in the background just to occupy myself while I'm keeping an eye on them. But yeah, to
So
me,
aside from Clue, since you say you haven't played Clue with them, and you already mentioned that other hero game, what board games are you playing with them?
yeah, so there's like my sister sent us an Israeli Monopoly junior game, like for kids. So we played that quite a bit for a while because he was really into Monopoly, Elon. And funny enough, like just recently, I reintroduced like Matt in one of his boxes had a game. I think he got it probably on a birthday or something from someone, but like he got like a Simpsons like operation game with Homer being the subject, the surgery. And it's never been open. It was like still in the bag. So I was like, I have kids now, and like Matt's boxes were still here back then. So it's like I pulled that out, and like now I started playing them. Now that they have more tactile hands, they can actually half succeed in like pulling it out. It's like, don't, whenever you like touch like Homer. But and they don't know The Simpsons. They haven't watched it, but like, that's how they get introduced to pop culture, is like through games, or like Star Wars. They watch the Lego animated stuff, but they haven't watched the actual movies. But yeah, there's those two and those three, and I recently went to Israel. I brought a Monopoly card game, which is kind of cool. I don't know if we're playing it the right way, but he's really into it, so we've definitely spent a lot of time. We play Uno. It's another card game.
Yeah.
And what other? Oh, and there's a couple, like we have Stone Age. There's like an adult and a kids version of Stone Age. So we play Stone Age. That's like a board game. And there's also Carcassonne is another one that might be familiar
Never
to
heard of that.
some. Yeah, they're all like same type of board games from like this one company. It's like yeah, Stone Age is like about like you're in the Stone Age and you build colonies, like you build homes, and whoever builds 3 homes first like wins. So it's like we got like maybe 4 or 5. Like I'm not a big collector, like, but when I went to Israel, I tried to find something for them to play. So I'm glad that Monopoly thing was a success because it's cards, so it's like also portable. But yeah, I definitely need to expand on it. Like my sister is actually gonna send me another package for Elon's birthday. She's gonna send us a couple more board games because obviously they get bored with them, and then you know then you have to find other solutions to not watch TV again. But obviously we watch movies too. I mean, I just watched The Never Ending Story with them, and they really loved it. So I show them all the all the movies from my childhood and stuff. In any case, but yeah, I guess this was gonna bring up stuff from our childhood and board games and all that.
So where would you rank the movie then?
I don't know. I would probably give it like a 6. I think it was amusing. It was enjoyable. I think it was a little bit too kooky, especially when they did the whole speed ramping and near the end. Um, it was like and it did remind me of a Mel Brooks movie to some degree, maybe more like of a Leslie Nielsen thing. Like it was a bit too silly for its own good. Um, but I did find it humorous at times. I didn't like laugh out loud or anything like that. I was just like smirking here and there, very momentarily. Mostly what I found very interesting about it is that it's how sexualized it was for something that's based on a board game, and it's rated PG. I'm really surprised that it's not PG-13, but I guess like PG stuff can have some sexual innuendos in it.
They didn't have PG-13 in 1985.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
It
Yeah.
would have been. This would have been a solid PG-13.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just from the get-go. But yeah, but that's my take on it, and we can get into the details after. But what about you two?
I would put it at about a 7.
All right.
I like this movie a lot, but I was just trying to decide how I would rank this guy's movies, and I have to figure that while I really do enjoy this movie as the silly kind of comedy, refreshing comedy that it is, um, I think it would be tough for me to give it an 8. So I'd say a 7.
I would just bump it up a little bit and say 7.5. But yeah, it's I I do have those laugh out loud moments. I mean,
I
it's
laughed.
just uh, I mean, just Madeline Kahn with her whole like, yes, I hated her. It was in my head, and it like flaming, flaming. uh, also, Michael McKean,
Michael
a
McKean is the
monkey's
best.
brain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's pretty good.
He's
yeah.
my
Yeah,
favorite part of the movie.
yeah, I was definitely happy about some of the casting. It's like, oh, this is like that's what I like about old movies, that you'll often like, there'll be a wealth of in the cast of like all these people that maybe weren't as big back then as they are now, like all the baggage that they bring to it in a good way for
Yeah,
someone just like 30, 40 years later. Yeah.
I love Michael McKean, and I went through his filmography because when I see him, like the number one thing that my brain goes to right away is Short Circuit 2, because he has such a big part in it. But and it's because I've seen that movie like 100 times as a child. Um, but but I it's so odd because he's so memorable in his roles, and I was surprised when I went back and looked at them that I really haven't seen too many movies with him. Certainly not many movies where he was a big character. Maybe only like 5 or something total, and that was weird to me because I really thought like I'd seen him in a whole bunch of things. But he really makes this movie. Did you guys see Jonathan Lynn's other films?
I think the only one was Cousin Vinny that I've seen.
I've
And I
seen Clue, My Cousin Vinny, Sergeant Bilko, and The Whole Nine Yards. That's the only ones I've seen.
wonder if
Uh,
I've rated my Cousin
Yeah,
Vinny.
I've seen my cousin Vinny and the whole 9 yards. I will always appreciate that for Amanda Pete's nude scene, but
oh, she's awesome in that movie.
yeah.
Surprisingly, I with zero connection to this film and to this director.
Also, gotta pay tribute to Matthew Perry.
Yeah,
And
I was just gonna say because
yeah,
of unfortunately the late passing of or recent passing of Matthew Perry. I actually just watched The Whole Nine Yards because it's like my one of his 2 best movies, I think. And
mm,
I was surprised when I saw that this guy directed that one as well. That one is my favorite of his films, and then I think My Cousin Vinny would be second, and then Clue right behind it because I think Clue's almost as good as My Cousin Vinny, and then Sergeant Bilko is like a 4. That's a pretty forgettable film.
mhm.
Yeah, I've never seen The Whole Nine Yards. Maybe I should see it. If nothing else, now it's like a double whammy. It's because there was just the news about that Bruce Willis can no longer speak
Yeah,
because he had the whole
Yeah.
like cognitive issue, and like now he's like no longer communicative. And it's like the passing of like 2 people in that movie
and Michael
recently.
Clark Duncan, although he was quite a while ago.
Yeah, no, so
Yeah.
it's
Um,
I might need to catch that movie.
I would heavily recommend it. I think it's a hilarious film.
It's kind of uh not funny that this is a conversation about a comedy, and it's getting really dark really fast.
It's okay. We'll get back, I'm sure.
Well, we should
Yeah,
just
But
move on to the spoilers then.
the whole I see
yeah.
there's like the whole 10 yards too.
No, don't watch that. Don't.
Yeah,
Don't
Don't.
no.
Okay.
No. Because The Whole Nine Yards is a fantastic movie. And while The Whole 10 Yards does have a number of decent jokes in it, it is not good.
Yeah. Oh, it's one of those that like kind of split with the critics. It seems like it's 43% Rotten Tomatoes, and then 86% like this movie on
Are
Google.
you referring to the sequel?
No, The Whole 9 Yards.
Oh,
but,
well.
but it's okay. I mean, we
Anyone
can
who
move on.
didn't like The Whole 9 Yards doesn't know what they're talking about. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, maybe I'll give it a go. Cool. So, spoilers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any place that either of you wants to start? Or?
I didn't. I didn't have anything specific. I was just going to say that this should be common knowledge at this point, because I think anytime anyone talks about this movie that is almost as old as I am, at least in the last 35 years or so, generally people tend to bring up the thing that at the time was probably pretty daring and different and unique about it and everything. But when the movie aired, of course, they I don't know how they decided who got what, but they put several different endings in different theaters, and so that the word of mouth would result in in people sitting around talking about the movie, going, so who was, like when you play the board game, the whole thing you're trying to figure
It's
out is
different
who
results.
was it. Yeah. Who did it, with what weapon, and in what room. And I'm sure that their goal was for people who didn't see the movie and weren't interested to go, so who did it? And then somebody was to say it, and then someone else in the room who'd seen the movie said, that's not who did it. It was so and so with the such and such in such and such room. And then they would start the discussion of like, wait, because they saw different endings.
Oh, that's pretty clever. I wonder if there's any other movies that's done that. Like that's.
I don't know.
So and this, because the version I saw, obviously they did the whole
yeah,
like
they did like 3 different
multiple endings, which
Yeah.
which kind of makes sense if you're like playing on you're goofing off about the board game, like because it can have multiple, and their last ending is like a very convoluted where everybody's connected somehow.
But he's complicit, yeah.
Yeah. So it's but that was actually what I was gonna bring up first, is like, how did you guys feel about that, as far as like your opinion of the movie, if it like lessened it, or if it actually made it like, you found it more unique because of that?
So I have some mixed feelings about that. Okay, so I was 4 months old when this movie came out. So obviously I was not seeing it in theaters when when it was available. But I have read that originally they were screening the movie with just one of the endings. And it would be a different ending in different theaters.
That's what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
probably
yeah.
did a poor job saying
Right.
it.
No, yeah.
Right. So
like probably what they did was the studio would send the endings in the cans would send one ending to a
yeah.
theater, and then a totally different ending to a different theater. But if you went to the same theater over and over, you were probably seeing the same ending.
But yeah, it makes sense that it's pointless to do that on the video release, because the video release is more uniform. So to have a 3-way ending kind of,
well, and not to
fun.
mention, once you find out what they did and you know what they did, especially in the age of video and DVD and stuff, that's going to drive the sales even more. If you went and saw it in theaters, you're like, I want to see what everybody else saw. I want to see all the endings.
Yeah, but I do wonder. Obviously, I would have to go back and watch it again, which I won't. But I do wonder how well it played, because I do feel like because of the 3 endings, it's a more epic way to finish it, and
Right.
slightly more satisfying, because it's like it doesn't matter who did it because it could have gone either way, and we could have found a way to, implicate any one of these people, and that's the fun thing about this. And we stopped at 3 to not get too ridiculous. Um, but I wonder in the theater if, like, because the endings, the 3 endings get progressively more complex, and the last one is like an all out like thing. So I'm just wondering, like, if the people which people thought they saw the stronger movie, the ones that saw the first ending, the second ending, or the third ending, because we know endings matter. Some are more satisfying than others. Like, which one of those 3 would have been a more satisfying ending in the theater to see? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I think I can tell you that I didn't see this in theaters. Obviously, I was a infant or a toddler. I really don't know where those distinctions change. But
I was 4 months old, so
all I'm saying. My point is, I didn't see this in theaters, but
I was 4 years old, but I didn't see it in theaters either.
Yeah, I can tell you that I never had any sort of surprise about this, because part of what drew me to this movie was it was already an old film. It wasn't like I was upset that anybody told me, but like I remember as I was watching it for the first time on television, the conversation that came up with all the adults around me was, hey, this is Clue, this is how they did this, and by the way, at the end they have multiple endings because they showed different endings to different people in the theater. And I just instantly was like, oh, well, that's great, I want to see all of them, that's so clever and cool and blah blah blah. But so I mean, from the very first time I ever saw it, I just was watching each ending knowing that it was like multiple endings. So it's not like it was any sort of surprise for me, because it had been spoiled in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. It's really clever the way they all work one after another, because they get progressively more complex.
They're at least plausible.
Each ending is at least plausible, yeah. So they're not completely ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's what the point that they were making is they could have done however many characters they had. They could have done 7 different endings and it would have worked.
Yeah.
Because all of them were like, like people from DC and something in politics. Like, everybody could have had some like an evil identity to them, or something they were doing that was like bad or illegal. But
according to the IMDb trivia, if that is to be believed, there was a 4th ending that was scripted and shot. But I guess they left it out. It says blah blah blah. This happened. You guys can read it for yourselves about the details. But it says, apparently it was left out more than likely because it was a little more grim than the others.
Oh, it wasn't as jokey.
Yeah. Somebody got eaten by the dogs, I guess, or something like that. I don't know. Anyway,
somebody tries to get out of the house and
but yeah, it also says now it is kind of silly because I'm just reading stuff out here, but I think everyone might find this interesting. According to interviews with the director, they had planned to have Carrie Fisher play Miss Scarlet, who I think she would have been great for that. But she was in rehab at the time and couldn't do it.
Oh, Miss Scarlet. Oh, that was the
prostitute, or not the prostitute, the madame of the
madame,
the prostitute house.
Although I don't know if I see that, like, because Carrie Fisher is a bit too sophisticated looking. I mean, if anything, she might have been able to pull off the Madeline Kahn thing.
You think so?
The whole gothic thing, like Dangerous Woman type of thing.
I could see her doing the Miss Scarlet. I mean,
she's just not as luscious as the actress that was playing Miss Scarlet, is what I would say. It's not her. I mean, obviously, It's all acting, so the right wardrobe and stuff, like you can pull it off. But yeah, the funny thing is that Madeline Kahn is known to be the sex symbol,
Yeah.
in the Mel Brooks movies. So and then here she played more of the Black Widow.
Yeah. Which you need a certain amount of sex appeal for that to work too.
Oh no, for sure, yes, and she was still very sexy there. I mean, the whole goth thing definitely.
Yeah.
But but she's obviously older, so you don't want to go. You still want to act your age to some degree.
Life after death is as unlikely as sex after marriage.
There's a lot of funny little bits that they threw in there like that. A lot of wordplay that was quite funny.
I will say the one thing that I found fairly funny is that I think it was here when he says something like she had, I think it was like if somebody was a communist or like she had communist friends.
Yeah.
And I think Tim Curry says like nobody's perfect.
Yeah, something about that being so unfortunate or something, and that made me laugh quite a bit, especially because it wasn't even full on communist. She said she had friends that were socialists.
Yeah, no, socialist, and he was like, I think it was Tim Curry said like just the his line reading was like nobody's perfect.
Yeah,
I found that like pretty.
It made me laugh quite a bit as well. Yeah. One of my favorite parts is that after the cook and after the body, Mr. Body and everything, and they've literally been running all over the house, which is of course a silly little nod to the game where you have to do a lot of pointless moving around of your pieces. Maybe I shouldn't say pointless, but tedious moving around of your character on the board and everything. They keep finding all the dead bodies, and then they go into the billiard room when the sexy maid has been strangled and killed.
Yvette.
And their reaction, Yvette, their reaction is just like so like it's just like none of them scream, none of them are in shock. They're just like at this point they're so over it,
I will say I mean I know it's a comedy and everything, but I don't think Yvette really needed to be like with an accent, like the whole French thing. She could have been just like an American bimbo of sorts.
Well, I could be wrong, but in the scene right before she dies, when she's staring towards the camera because the person who kills her is in the shadows, isn't she speaking in a normal American accent? Like
yes.
I thought that was supposed to be a reveal that she was trying to disguise her voice because one or two of the characters knew her. Like Colonel Mustard was one of her clients and stuff like that.
It's possible. I don't recall that moment, but you're saying that she faked the French accent just for this dinner, so they would have known her with her American accent.
Well, at least that it was a vague attempt to disguise herself.
I see. Oh, but if they knew her, they knew her. Like, wouldn't they mention something about the accent?
I don't know. I
mean, in 30 years, that idea has never crossed my mind.
But
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that that has never crossed my mind.
What?
The accent thing. It literally has never crossed my mind.
The switch of accent or the fact that I just feel like because she's obviously not French, like she's American, the actress, and it's a very bad French accent. So what would be the reason? What does it add to the movie aside from like making it more international? And if that was the point,
I mean, I could be wrong. Could easily be wrong, but my thought is that that she's doing it to disguise herself from the two people that know her, but also B, that the choice of it being a French accent is just because that's the stereotype, right? I mean, Tim Curry is playing the stereotypical butler, and she's playing the French maid.
Yeah, it's the French maid thing, and because it's a spoof movie, that's what they're like, oh, we'll just give her an accent. And I don't know if that reveal really comes up and she does reveal her American accent, or if that's just like a an error in the movie, but because if they know her, because they several times say that they know her, or do they say that like
I think they
that she
discover that they
looks
know her.
familiar, but they weren't sure where they saw her? Is that what
Yeah,
they?
well, I mean, Colonel Mustard only knew her as a client. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've never been with a prostitute, so I don't know if you would remember them in a different state. I'm not sure. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
maybe he sees a lot of prostitutes. You
yeah,
don't
that's
remember
what
all
that's
of
my
them.
whole point. Is yeah, I don't know. And then depending on which ending you're talking about, she in one of them she's taking orders from Miss Scarlet because she was her
Yeah.
old boss, and then in one of them Miss Scarlet realizes, I think maybe I'm wrong about that, I don't remember. The endings start to get jumbled after you think about them long enough.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, but yeah, the French maid, that totally explains it then. And it's funny, like the whole thing with the accents. So I was listening to a podcast about like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves,
Yeah.
and they spend half the podcast they're talking about like Kevin Costner's like problem in that movie, that like he wanted to do an accent, but the director said like, don't worry about it, like they half did it some of the time, and it's just like a
Yep.
huge jumble
It's
of
in and
like,
out all the time.
it's in and out, and it's like just the whole thing is unnecessary. And then like they read something online that actually in the Middle Ages, people in England wouldn't actually have a British accent, because if anything, they wouldn't even speak English. It would have been like a different language altogether. So it probably
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
but
All the,
still,
but still, you
you
want
got
to
to be
have a
consistent
flavor.
with the other
Like,
characters.
don't cast everybody else as
Yeah,
English actors, but then have Kevin Costner.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
ridiculous.
But
um,
Yeah.
that's like, go ahead.
No, you go. You
I
go.
was just gonna say that's like, you just have to be consistent with your choices, as a filmmaker. Like, there was no problem casting Tom Cruise as a German officer in that
Valkyrie.
Valkyrie movie, as long as you just stuck to your guns and just made the decision, like, we're going to make this like so many other movies of the 80s and early 90s, where it's like, we just don't care, we're just using all American and different English speaking people to play these characters, and nobody's going to sound German at all, and that's fine, just do that.
Yeah,
But
the whole
instead
consistency.
they've got, like, I'm trying to remember their names, but they've got several really fantastic German actors in the movie playing other Germans in scenes with him. You know, and you're just like, I'm sorry, but this is not working.
And they're talking English with a German accent.
Yes, but they're
At least they
even though
stuck to the English.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're speaking English with a German accent, but they're also clearly German, just in every way, shape, and form, whereas he's clearly not.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
Munich had a similar issue, like where like some people spoke Hebrew if they were like Israeli actors, but then like the Golda Meir character and some other ones like only spoke English. It's just like, just stick to one language. Like just do English with an Israeli accent, and you're good. It's like just
Or
Yeah.
make a truly international film and
Yeah.
literally have characters speaking the languages they would be speaking in any given situation.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or just do what they did with Enemy at the Gates.
That's a success right there.
All the Russians are somehow British, and all the Germans are somehow American.
Yeah, that works. Like,
Yeah,
on
but
some subtle level, it works.
it's just consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
consistency. That's the way to go. Like you just create a world and just stick to the rules. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
but
that's what
in any
works.
case,
right.
yeah.
But
I don't want to do the, like, I don't want this to sound petty or anything, but I thought to myself, this movie's been out for so long. I feel like somebody must have, we can't be the only people asking this question. So I just did a Google search right now, And according to Google, it says Clue 1985. It says Yvette, the French air quotes maid, uses random French words in some cases. Later in the movie, it is revealed that she is an American posing as a French maid.
Oh, so it does like they do touch on that.
I don't remember when, but at some point, that's what it says.
Yeah.
So she was trying to hide it for some reason. Yeah, that's just
Yeah.
weird.
Anyway,
Yeah. The other question I had is like, I think when we were talking about doing this episode, like I think Jason might have said that, but like something about Tim Curry, about like celebrating his career or something. I don't know what, but like, but I do find Tim Curry interesting because I think the two main things he's done was like a Rocky Horror Picture Show, right?
well, that was
And
definitely one of his big ones. Yeah.
but what was the another big thing that he's done? Because like he's
Well,
had
he's
like
done so many great ones. Yeah.
he had the Muppets movie, right?
The Muppets Treasure Island. That's a really
Yeah.
good movie. Yeah. Rocky Horror, of course, was one of his biggest ones because it's so iconic and everything. Particularly his performance is, was so iconic. But also, I mean, I think he's mostly his like villains have been so great over the years, or I would say they were so great over the years. Let me use the proper tense here. But yeah, very successful voice acting career, and then he was in
Yeah.
Legend. He was this really big demonic character in Legend. That's the fantasy movie with Tom Cruise and stuff. But he was also what was it? Before they made this remake, I think he was Pennywise. I think.
Pennywise.
Yeah, the evil clown.
Oh, is it
Yeah.
in the 80s movie?
Yeah. The old one. Yeah. He's and obviously Muppets Treasure Island was awesome. What's the other one? I was looking for. There's 3 or 4 other ones I'm totally missing
I'm
right
trying
now.
to find it. Where's that? Was it in there? Yeah, it was. Well, it was a
my
mini
favorite.
series. It
Well,
says.
yeah, I mean it was, yeah. But
Yeah.
he played
Oh,
Cardinal Rush.
it was a mini series. It was never a movie.
No, well, they made it into a movie now, but yeah.
Oh, but back then it wasn't a movie. I thought it was a movie.
No, it was a miniseries. Yeah. But he is I wouldn't call him a bad guy, but he's like the antagonist, I guess, who's like trying to catch Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone 2. And he's the he plays a really good cardinal in the Three Musketeers, the one with
Kiefer Sutherland.
Kiefer Sutherland
in the 90s.
and Charlie Sheen. Yeah, the 90s, 1993. He's fantastic in that one.
Yeah, he's definitely done a bunch of stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of the voice acting. He was in Aladdin, I guess the TV show.
Yeah, that was just the TV show though.
Yeah. So he definitely like had a big he was in Congo.
Yeah, it's not a great movie. This is definitely not what most people would consider a good movie, and I would not feel comfortable giving it a great review, saying it right here now, because I haven't seen it since I was like probably 15 or something. I don't know, probably since the year it came out and came out on VHS tape is probably when I watched it. But somewhere I can't find it on here, but somewhere on here was this silly action movie he did, which was the movie remake of the TV show McHale's Navy. And
yeah,
I remembered really liking stuff in it. Like, it's got a really funny cast, and Tim Curry specifically plays this like really funny character where he's like a mercenary or something. But I remember it having great jokes and a really good cast. But I've gone back and I've read what people have said about it, and I was like, yeah, it's probably watching that as like a, as like a very forgiving teenager. kind of thing. It's probably a pretty terrible movie. I had to guess, but I remembered it fondly. I definitely remembered it fondly. It's got like Bruce Campbell in it, and David Allen Greer, Ernest Borgnine. I mean, it's got a pretty good, funny cast of characters.
Yeah.
I think the movie's probably really pretty poorly written. I'm assuming. I don't remember the plot being particularly realistic or good.
Yeah, but Tim Curry tends to just be enjoyable no matter what you throw.
He's such a good bad guy.
Yeah, he's just fun. He's just a fun human being.
He will be
it's
missed.
hard. It's hard to do anything with him that is not enjoyable. So yeah, I mean, and
wait, Tim Curry is still alive, right?
yeah.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
Did you say he will be missed?
I did say that. I'm sorry. I was mixing him up. I'm sorry, Tim Curry.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was just about to say, who I seem to be mixing him up with is Eddie Izzard. I don't know why.
Oh, wow.
They kind of like remind me of each other.
Well, they've both done a lot of movies with prosthetics and makeup and stuff, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because Eddie Izzard. I mean, now I think he's gone full like transgender. I think now I think he's got his name is now Susie Izzard. But it kind of goes both ways. But yeah, he's exactly because you know why I confused them, because Eddie Izzard is the cross dresser, but Tim, or at least he was famous for that in the 90s and stuff. And Tim Curry was famous for Rocky Horror Show was also
yeah, that's a good point.
So I those two just kind of blended in my mind,
I'm just embarrassed that I thought he was dead.
Yeah. You're talking about Tim Curry.
Yeah.
They're both alive. Yeah. So it's Eddie Izzard is like 61 and Tim Curry.
I heard, I was hearing
77.
Eddie.
Wow, he is older. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard Eddie Izzard is planning to go into politics, I think.
Oh, he is?
That's what I heard.
Jesus Christ.
That's interesting. Maybe he'll be prime minister.
Could be. He's very funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, couldn't be that much worse than Boris Johnson, right? But I mean, how many people can actually recite Beowulf in the original language? From memory. I mean, Boris Johnson was never an idiot. I mean, like, the guy's smart as a whip. He's just not on the right side of history in a lot of ways. But yeah.
How did we get on Boris Johnson?
Eddie Izzard becoming prime minister.
We were right. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, there was a direct path there, and I never should have gone there. So let's move on.
Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else about Clue or the?
I just wanted to once again shout out Michael McKean. I think he was just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, yeah. Go ahead.
And also, whenever I played the game, I always played as Mr. Green. So I was always.
I usually did too. I've always liked green as a color.
Yeah. Yeah. So when Mr. Green, pulled his gun and shot, Wadsworth, I was always cheering that on. So yeah.
I saw a fun fact about like the that all the outfits were like opposites, that like Mrs. White wore black and Mr. Green wore like they kind of like flipped it.
Yeah.
Like
Although
with the
I did not pick this up until I read it in the thing because it's the scenes with them are
Miss
so dark.
Scarlet
But
is like green or
yeah,
something.
they said that the automobile, the cars that they drove up in, are all somewhat matching their colors.
Mhm.
Yeah, they kind of really took the colors to heart. Like they played around with the names. I mean, Mrs. Peacock had like a whole peacock on her.
Yeah.
So it's like she looked like a Mr. Peacock, like the opposite of a Mrs. Peacock.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but yeah, it was definitely like a well thought out like movie. It was just a bit goofy, too goofy at times. But I was gonna say about Michael McKean is definitely like Spinal Tap is a big one, and
Yeah.
he's popped up in a few of the Christopher Guest movies, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I love Airheads.
Oh, I
Oh
hated
yeah,
that movie.
Mighty
How
Wind.
did
That
you
was the one I
hate
saw.
that movie? That's so good.
Airheads.
Yeah.
I
The Adam Sandler and
sounds familiar.
you Gil, of all people, you've never seen Airheads? Oh,
Now I'm
you'd
looking for.
love it.
Let me just look it
It's so
up.
great.
Airheads. It's tough to find it in his. These people like have made so many movies.
I know it's a early '90s, I think.
Airheads.
Brendan
Oh, the one
Fraser.
the one with Brendan Fraser and like that
Yeah,
they're in a band together. I need to
yeah.
see it because I've heard about it because
Oh,
of the
it's so
resurgence
funny.
of Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, it's definitely Spinal Tap too. Because I actually listened to one of their albums back when I was a kid, and and I know it because I knew about the album before I knew about the movie, so I thought it was like a serious band. Like I knew that they were like a tongue-in-cheek rock band,
Yeah.
but I didn't know that there was like that it was not a serious rock band. That it was like essentially a comedy album of sorts. Like it's funny music, but it's still rock and roll. It's like it's kind of like
Yeah.
Tenacious D. Like to me, it was
Right.
like Tenacious D. Like it's doing rock music with a tongue-in-cheek like thing to the lyrics. But yeah, but he was always to me like the lead singer of Spinal Tap in that period. And he's not British, huh? Because he plays him British.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's known for Clue. I guess A Mighty Wind, Spinal Tap, Clue, and Better Call Saul. That's his known for on IMDb.
What he should be known for is Short Circuit 2.
Apparently, but maybe he's not doesn't have as big of a role there.
No, he's got a huge role in that movie. It's just that it's not a
Yes.
very well-known movie.
Yeah, he pops up in Good Omens too.
I wanted to see when I saw that he was in that. I was like, I still need to force myself to watch that.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he might be in the first season. I'm not sure, or the second season, but yeah, I mean, the second season they have John Hamm. Pretty good.